I'm Synthia Andrews. I'm a naturopathic physician and an energy intuitive. So I work on all aspects of health and healing, from the very physical to the mental, emotional, and spiritual. There is no question that we are living in unprecedented times. We're seeing changes on levels that have never really been seen before, in recorded history anyway. And ancient prophecies from many different cultures have talked about this occurring as a breakdown of old patterns that no longer work anymore, old structures that need to be changed. When I look around at everything going on and think about these prophecies and wonder to myself, what is the old that needs to change? It seems to me that what we're changing is duality consciousness, the idea that material is bad and spiritual is good, and that there is a breakdown in society between evil and good and separate forces working against each other. And I think that we're aiming towards a time when we see that there is one force with polarity, and that when we align with that one force, we can find the best of who we are. I do think that the times that we are in are creating a bottleneck of evolution that are sort of forcing us into finding new resources and new parts of ourselves, or deeper parts of ourselves, not necessarily new, that will help us create an evolutionary leap for all of humanity, all of reality, let's say, because we are part of an indivisible whole. And that evolutionary leap, again, comes with a change in consciousness. So this idea that time is speeding up is interesting to me, because I think of time as being the space between events. And when events, we understand from Einstein that time is not a constant, that it expands and contracts and moves around physical objects. And so if we look at time as a malleable, so when we look at time as a non-constant, what we can say is that time is separating events. So because if an event happened concurrently, if there was no time, we wouldn't be able to tell the difference between what we were creating and what already existed, what our thoughts created and what manifested in the world. When we think of time as not being constant, its function becomes the separation of events, so that we can feel the difference between and see the difference between having a thought and having it manifest. And if that were all happening simultaneously, the opportunity for growth would be missed. And so I think of time as being a spacer for growth. And here we are at a time when what we are thinking is manifesting so quickly. So from that perspective, yes, time is speeding up. Communication is one of the most difficult challenges we're facing right now, because it's the words that we use are coded with our beliefs and our experiences and the different teachings that we've learned through the ages from religion and society. It's part of the social engineering of our mind. And so in order to really be able to discern what is true and what is real in the communications that we have, we almost need another language, a language that hasn't been coded with all of the trauma of our society and our own personal experience. I believe that that language comes from nature and is the language of subtle energy. It is a language that every culture, every person, every animal, every tree can speak within, and we receive it through our body in a designed way. We are created in a way that receives this subtle energy information and decodes it and translates it into a communication we can all participate in. In Chinese medicine, where the mind goes, energy follows. So our attention becomes a powerful co-creative force in the universe. If we put our attention on something, then our energy is going to flow to it and create and manifest it. Attention that is unintentional creates unintended consequences. So the more that we can take the intention of our heart and create a really powerful intention that encompasses our passion and what we really believe in life, and direct our attention with that passion, then our actions come in line with our mind and our heart, and we have a cohesive presentation to the world, and we co-create a reality that is of a higher nature. Einstein created this thought in our head that energy equals matter times the speed of light squared. And what that really means is that matter and energy are the same substance vibrating at different speeds. So that's kind of an exciting thing. It means there's really no difference between energy and matter. And one of the parts of that we often forget is that means that spirituality is pervasive in everything. We don't have to travel twice times the speed of light to be part of an unseen world, to experience that unseen right here, and to have our material reality be as powerfully spiritual as our unseen energetic reality. So for me, becoming aware of the essence of who we are as spiritual beings inside of a material body is really what that means, and coming into alignment with the abilities that we have to influence the material world through the energetic templates that we have access to. Einstein set us off in a direction of understanding the connection between energy and matter in a more advanced way with his equation E equals mc squared, meaning that energy and matter are related through the speed of light squared. And so what this really means is that energy and matter are the same substance vibrating at a different speed. And that means that if we ascribe spirituality to the energetic unseen part of the spectrum, then we have to invest the material part of the spectrum with spirituality as well, because it is the same substance. And so I think that what that phrase means, or what the phrase means that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, is that the greater part of who we are lives in the unseen part of this spectrum. And when we become aware of that part of ourselves in the physical, we discover that we have abilities that we didn't really know that we had to be co-creative in this evolution of mankind that we're involved in this growth of our personal development. The material world contains more than what we can see with our 5 physical senses. We are equipped with senses that take in frequencies that are beyond the frequencies that our eye sees or the frequencies that our ears can hear. And these frequencies are received in energy structures in the body. We are designed to navigate the terrain of subtle energy, to navigate the terrain of these finer frequencies. And everything we need is in our body. All we have to do is begin to access parts of our body that we have become engineered out of being aware of. The sea of energy that we live within not only provides us with information about the world around us, the energy ambiance, we could call it, it also connects us to all other living things. It connects us to the deeper part of ourselves. It connects us to the universe and the inanimate and animate and seen and unseen parts of that universe. It provides us with the knowledge that we are not alone, that we are not separate, that we are part of an interlocking whole. Subtle energy is the substance of reality. One of the ways that we can think about this is the way scientists talk about dark energy and dark matter, creating the scaffolding for all physical matter and all physical energy that we understand. I think of subtle energy as being that scaffolding that forms our physical world around us. Everything that we think, say, and do affects the sea of energy. And the radiation that we put out, the electromagnetic radiation that we put out, attracts like frequencies back to us. And so in a way, it's like social media of today. You go on social media, you click on something you like, and now AI brings you 25 more things that are just exactly the same, and you begin to see the world based on what you put out. And it's the same with subtle energy. Whatever it is that we are putting out into the world is what we attract back to us until it begins to form our picture of reality in such a solid way that we have to break through a lot of patterning to shift into a higher consciousness. Subtle energy is not an energy the way we physically understand energy. It's not a force. It doesn't have kinetic or potential action. It is a building block of matter, a scaffolding of matter. David Bohm, who is the grandfather of quantum physics, talks about light as being the building block of matter. And I think light is the closest that we can come to understanding the substance of subtle energy, that is both energy and matter, and it becomes the building block. So how do you be a building block? You have to carry information, and the information that light carries is related to decoding the energetic templates. I think of a hologram, I think of how lasers crisscross and create interference patterns, and those interference patterns are then decoded into the holograms that are made. I think it is the same with light. This crisscrossing light creates this reality around us that we live in. All spiritual traditions refer to light as the source of inspiration and even wisdom. It seems as though it's an indication that light is an organizing principle in matter. The human body is designed to receive energy and to decode the frequencies that are coming into us. And you can think of this as we're in this sea of energy ambiance that has all of these different frequencies coming to us. And we have an electromagnetic radiation around us that we can call the aura that has these different layers of frequency to it. And each layer receives one of the frequencies coming towards us, transmits that into a corresponding chakra. And the chakra itself then steps down this frequency to a resonant frequency that our body is capable of receiving. The chakras are aligned to nerve plexuses and endocrine glands, which then get excited, producing emotions, producing physical sensations, producing thoughts. This is our intuition, this is our gut instinct, this is what we know without knowing how we know it. And we know it because our body is receiving all this information through this energy ambiance. And then, of course, it works in the reverse. We take this information, we process it according to our own lens of belief, and then we project back outwards through the chakra into the aura, out into the world, what our beliefs are, what our intentions are, where our attention is put. And this becomes our presence. And our presence is the most powerful force that we have in the world, because without doing anything but showing up, our presence is already broadcasting the deeper parts of who we are. So when things happen to us, we create thought forms that then configure how our energy is related. So let me give an example. You run out in front of a bus and you see this bus coming at you. Immediately, your bladder and kidney meridians are generating fear to get you to move faster, and your first chakra is pulling forward all the survival instincts. And this thought out in your field that I'm going to die, all these things get connected and they create a pattern of energy that we can consider like a geometry that's holding our energy. And now every time we see a bus after that, that configuration gets activated. And unless we actively process the whole piece of it, the fear, the thought, the experience, unless we process it and integrate it, now we live in a pre-programmed fear of the bus, right? So every time we see it, we get activated. In duality consciousness, we create an us and them. There is us that, is doing this, and them that is bad. We have good and evil, and everything we don't like about ourselves, every unprocessed feeling that is uncomfortable, every piece of fear that we haven't figured out, we can now push that over there onto that evil thing is making me feel that way. And so we never have to really process and deal with our shadow. So part of being able to move out of survival mode is getting rid of duality consciousness. The experiences that we have create structures in our energy field that constrain and direct the flow of our energy. So people often get stuck in different patterns, like many people are stuck in survival mode. And this can happen. So imagine the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Maybe you ran or in front of a bus and you looked up and there was the bus. And immediately you have an emotion of fear, and that fear is generated through different chakras in your body and different transmitted through different meridians. So you have your bladder meridian and your kidney meridian lighting up. You have your root chakra lighting up, and you have the thought, I'm going to die, and all of these things create a pattern that is now a structure in your energy field. If you process those things, if you process the fear, if you follow the thought to its origin, where is your fear of death? What do you think about death? If you do the work, then that pattern dissolves and it doesn't exist. But if you don't do the work, if you decide the fear is too uncomfortable and you push it out and the thought has no answer, who knows what happens after death, then this becomes a repeating pattern. And every time you see the bus, you have that fear. I think this is the basis of PTSD. So in order now to really make the shift, you have to shift out of this energetic pattern. You have to break this construct. It's an interesting thing, because one of the reasons that we keep this duality consciousness is because we can take the fear, we can take unprocessed anger, we can take all of these emotions that give us good information in the moment but are not helpful long term, and we can push them over there, and we can say that bad things made that happen, that evil created these feelings or this situation, rather than taking responsibility and ownership for our own shadow self and processing the things that are uncomfortable. When we do that, then we are available for higher states of consciousness. Many people think that humanity itself is stuck in a survival pattern. Personally, I think that we are stuck in self-importance. I think that we see ourselves as the pinnacle of evolution, the only intelligent species on the planet, the only intelligence in the universe, and we limit our ability to experience and be connected to greater reality by separating ourselves from it, by judging it as being less than we are. And judgment itself is really the source of separation, and separation is really the source of what's going wrong in society today. I think technology and our dependence on technology today has dulled our awareness of nature, and even more than that, it has dulled our awareness of our inner life and our inner self and the inner power that we have in the material and spiritual world. I think we come from Earth. Earth has a resonant frequency that we are harmonized with. Every cell in our body harmonizes with the frequencies of nature. We add these technological frequencies and it disrupts our biology, it disrupts cellular life. And there are many studies on this to demonstrate the reality of it. So every way that we can go back to incorporating nature into our lives is only going to strengthen our physical, spiritual, emotional health. Humans are involved with Earth in more than just the physical survival resources that we mine from Earth. Our energy structures are intricately linked with energy structures in the Earth, and the Earth is receiving frequencies from space and from other planets, from constellations. And these frequencies are coming into the Earth aura and into the Earth chakra system. These frequencies then travel through what are called ley lines, which we might associate with meridians, and they intersect at different places and they create what we might call a power vortices. Ancient societies, the Maya, the Egyptians, ancient megalithic sites in England, were aligned with these earth energy sites and utilized those energy sites to magnify the intention of the building or the society that was placed there. And that interlocking connectedness with nature empowered everything that those societies did. Right now, when I look around at the way that we construct cities, at the complete disrespect that we have for the natural flow of nature, I feel that we are separating ourselves ever more fully from the essence of who we are. And if we could return to bringing nature back into our structures, bringing the sacred geometry of nature back into our cities and our buildings and our architecture as it used to be in old churches and synagogues and mosques around the world, I think we would be mentally, spiritually healthier. Many of the spiritual traditions, like anthroposophy, which was developed by Rudolf Steiner, talk about how our energy structures themselves evolve over time as we evolve, and that as our energy structures evolve, we're affecting the evolution of all of humanity, all of life on Earth. The more that we develop our energy awareness, the more our energy structures themselves change, and we become aware that there are higher energy centers in our aura than the ones that are what I call the physioenergetic structures, the ones that relate directly into our body. And these higher chakras are guiding evolution of the planet. Energy awareness begins with body awareness. Our bodies are wired to receive energy information. We cannot have an experience we have not been designed for. So every far out experience that people have, they were designed to receive that information. We've just been taught that those pieces of information aren't valuable and that they're illusion and we should just simply dismiss them. However, because we are wired to receive energy information and it's physically wired, all we have to really do is develop our body awareness. So what does that mean? That means that when we suddenly have a vision or a thought or an emotion that we can't associate to any obvious cause, and then we pay attention and feel that something shifted in our body. We had tingles, we had an opening, we had energy moving through our system. We begin to realize that these emotions that we're having, these thoughts that we're having, these physical sensations are related to a shift in the ambient energy field. And if we begin to pay attention to that and develop a language of that, our own personal dictionary of how energy is decoded in our own body, we begin to develop our energy awareness. Our bodies are wired to receive energy information. Through our chakras, through our aura, this information comes into our body and is translated into emotions, into feelings and sensations, and gut instincts and thoughts. When we begin to pay attention to what's happening inside of our body and noticing the external world at the same time, and this is really about being present in your body, that's the beginning of energy awareness. When attention and intention are joined, it gives us the ability to receive information in a more clear way and to transmit our information in a very precise way. And so it's all part of creating our presence and negotiating the terrain of energy reality. There are two keys to really using our energy awareness, and that is our intention and our attention, so our intentional attention. When we are intentional about where we're putting our attention and how we're interacting with what we put our attention on, we become more conscious. Cymatics is a really fascinating area of study that was started by Hans Jenny, who was a scientist in the early 20th century. And what he demonstrated was the way that frequency organizes matter. So frequency, in this case, sound frequency, he demonstrated that different sounds vibrated matter into different shapes, and that if you change the frequency of the sound, the shape would change. And he demonstrated that our three-dimensional reality can be reconstructed by shifting different frequencies. I think that not only does sound frequency do this, but light frequency does it as well. In addition to light and sound, we could say that thought is itself a frequency that can organize matter. And Masahiro Emoto, who is a scientist who demonstrated that the crystalline structure of water changes when people focus on that, on water as it's freezing with different thoughts. And so he would have a group of people focusing on water, thinking more negative thoughts, and the crystalline structure that would form was disorganized. But when they had very coherent, loving thoughts, it was very beautiful patterning. Masahiro's work gives us a really visual demonstration of how our thoughts affect matter. As we're moving out of duality consciousness, we have to ask, well, what kind of consciousness are we moving into? And of course, in a paradigm shift, you don't really know what you're shifting to, otherwise it wouldn't be a paradigm. However, there are clues. One clue is the discovery of holograms, and that has really changed science in a lot of ways and changed spiritual understanding as well. When a hologram is created through the crisscrossing patterns of light and the interference patterns that they make, we create a three-dimensional structure. And we're so used to this, we don't even understand all the depths of it. We're so used to seeing key fobs with their three-dimensional aspect to them. We're used to going and seeing sculptured heads within glass where the eyes follow you as you move. But holograms are much more than that. When you take a photograph of a hologram and you tear it in half, you don't have two half pieces. You have two pieces with the whole encoded in both of them. And it doesn't matter how many times you tear it in half, each piece contains the whole picture. However, the important thing about that, or one of the important things about that, is that each piece contains the whole picture from the perspective of where it was in the original, which means two things. It means that it takes all of us to create a whole and all of our unique perspectives to create a whole. It also means that the whole exists within inside of each of us and that we each have access to the information in the whole. What we have to be careful of is that we have access to that information through the lens of our own perception. And so we need to always be doing our inner work to make sure our perception isn't coded with our past trauma, with our old belief systems, with the social engineering we've been raised with. The realization of holographic nature has changed science in many different ways. Neuroscientists now understand that the brain codes information in crisscrossing neural network patterns. We understand that the universe itself is holographic in nature. What this means to me and what I can see is that the hologram itself is constantly changing and evolving and being influenced by each of its pieces. So each one of us, although our perspective is important to the whole, each one of us is also directing the evolution of the whole. And as we're going through this transformation, we have to decide, what is my contribution to that evolution? What do I want to bring to it? Do I want to bring awakening? Do I want to bring to people the best of who they are? Or do I want to stay stuck in this old paradigm of importance, self-importance, power, competition, and duality? There are no mistakes. We are not here by accident. We were born for this time. We were born to be participating in this transformation. So let's take the leap into greater awareness. Let's take the leap with love, with kindness, with compassion. When we focus on only one half of Einstein's famous equation of E equals mc squared, when we focus on just the material half of that, it's easy to lose sense of the deeper purpose inherent within it. But all we really have to do is look at the design within nature, the sacred geometry with which nature is created, the fractal expansion of life, and the idea that there isn't meaning in that becomes almost silly. Energy exists upon an electromagnetic spectrum. Everything is emitting electromagnetic radiation at all times. Subtle energy, some people think, is at a range on that electromagnetic spectrum that we haven't yet figured out how to measure, in the same way that we didn't know how to measure radio waves in the 1800s, or we didn't know how to measure microwaves or use microwaves or code microwaves with information that has become our cell phones. So that's one thought about what subtle energy is, a set of frequencies within the electromagnetic range. Another thought is that subtle energy is the foundation underneath all electromagnetic radiation. Frequency itself is, if we're talking about waves, it's the number of waves in a given second, so the speed at which a wave propagates. If we're looking at vibration, it's the speed of vibration. So if we're looking just at the electromagnetic spectrum, then subtle energy is a set of frequencies within the electromagnetic spectrum. to create a new paradigm, a new reality for humanity, we need to utilize our attention in a very intentional way. We have to know what we're focusing for and make that happen in every moment. The point of power is in the present moment. We can't go back and change the past. We can't move into the future before it's happened. The future is created out of the decisions that we're making right here and right now. And so the degree to which we can be intentional in how we behave right here and right now is what is creating the future. Right now, we are facing a medical crisis in America and abroad. And when we stop and look at what's wrong with our medical system, I think we can look at it on many different levels. On a completely physical level, greed is what is wrong, the profit margin instead of people's health, being more interested in what the shareholders are making. The fact that insurance companies are controlling our healthcare is a big part of it. On another level, I think until medicine stops seeing death as failure and starts to recognize death as a natural part of life, and that there is more to us than the physical, and when the physical transforms, there's something even more amazing and wonderful out there. And until we really come to grips with death, I don't think medicine can change a whole lot. I also think medicine doesn't deal with the origins of where, or the spiritual origins of where illness comes from, which I really believe has to do with isolation. If part of the body is isolated from blood flow, then it dies. If parts of the body are isolated from the nervous system, they die or they lose their organization. When we as members of society are isolated from each other, we die. And I think that's why shunning was such a powerful force in different religious practices. And I think until we bring people back into connection to their inner selves, connection to nature, connection to each other, connection to a larger society that we agree has benefit and value for everybody, then I think that illness will continue unabated. And I don't think there's a whole lot that medicine can do from the perspective that medicine comes from.